Welcome everyone to my latest Pillars of Eternity min-max character creation guide. Hello, my name is Macsen. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the monk class, and specifically we're going to be looking at a monk that's designed for frontline play, a kind of a tank role. Now you may be surprised by my low constitution that I'm recommending this as a frontline class, but I'm going to go into details later on why this is so low. The original design for this build was created by Sensuke, someone who was a very prolific beta tester for Pillars of Eternity. You can check out his original video in the comments section, I'll leave a link to it there. But he came up with this basic design for the class, and this is my version of the video he did. This is designed for a frontline role, unlike I believe what his was originally designed for. Now, basically, with this monk, it relies on 3 certain abilities and its race class. 2 abilities in particular are Turning Wheel, which that gives you extra flame damage when it receives wounds. I'm going to go into details about that a bit later on. And the other key ability for this class is going to be Rooting Pain, which basically causes damage to opponents whenever the monk is hit. So it's kind of a very passive ability, and in general this is going to be a very passive build. It does damage without actually attacking. Now let's actually mention some of the monk's basic details before we get into other things. So you can see the monk's basic backstory there. Starting ability, Transcendent Suffering. When monks have no weapons equipped, their unarmed attacks are exceptionally powerful and continue to increase in damage as they gain levels. So this guy's amazing at unarmed combat. Wounds. As monks are damaged, their pain generates wounds. Wounds can be used to power many of the monk's special abilities, Turning Wheel included, which I'll be showing how that works later on. They have points in 3 different skills: Stealth, Athletics and Survival, and they have some of the best stats in the game of any class. They have the highest deflection, the highest accuracy, the highest health amount, and the second highest endurance. Only the Barbarian, I believe, has a higher level endurance than that. Actually, the Barbarian in effect has a higher level of health as well, since health is based on the endurance amount. They're basically second best in the game though. So attributes, let's have a look at them. So the reason why I've picked these attributes is based on what later abilities and skills I'm going to pick, so it kind of doesn't make much sense maybe to you at the moment. Now, I've maxed out my intelligence. This is basically to take advantage out of the Rooting Pain ability as much as possible. That has an area of effect, so that's why I've maxed that out so much. The Might, there's a variety of ways the monk can actually cause damage. It can cause damage via Rooting Pain. It can cause damage off Battle Forged, which is part of the Fire Godlike's ability. It can do normal unarmed attacks. So there's basically at least 3 ways this monk is going to be causing damage later on. So maxing out your Might is really important. Dexterity. Now, we don't need Dexterity with this build, even though Obsidian has recommended it. The reason is because many of the monk's attacks are actually going to be passive attacks, so that it does it automatically. So it doesn't really matter how quickly you do them. Now, Constitution, my reason for lowering this to such a low amount is because the Fire Godlike ability, which I'll show now, when you get to below 50% endurance, Fire Godlike glow like metal in a forge, gaining damage reduction and doing a small amount of damage, fire damage, to any creature who hits them in melee. Now this isn't actually quite true. It includes misses. So if an opponent attacks you in melee and misses, this ability still does damage to them. I'm not sure if Obsidian meant for that to happen, but that is the case. So having a huge amount of deflection on your monk means that you can avoid being hit and still do damage with the fire Battle Forged ability. And also, if you want this to trigger in the first place, having a low constitution means it's going to happen a lot more quickly, since the less constitution you have, the less endurance, and the less endurance, the more quicker it will happen. The more sooner you'll get to the 50% endurance mark. Now, there is obviously a risk in having a low amount of endurance, but because of the monk's extremely high starting levels of endurance and health, having a low constitution means you still have a hefty amount of endurance and health. I'll be showing later on how much exactly that is. Now all of your attacks are going to be extremely accurate as well, including those passive attacks. And also, because of your monk's transcendent suffering ability, you actually get a further accuracy bonus with your unarmed attacks anyway. So the monk is amazing, in fact, at hitting opponents regularly. And there's a huge amount of deflection, so with that huge amount of deflection added on to the very high levels of perception and resolve, which both give deflection, your opponents are going to be missing you a lot, and yet you'll still be doing damage with them with that Battle Forged ability. Now I think I've pretty much mentioned all of the attributes, haven't I? The reason why I've got more perception here than resolve is because you'll be doing interrupt attacks on each of those passive ability attacks you do. Now it works with Root in Pain. I don't believe it works with Battle Forge. I'm not sure you can interrupt people with Battle Forge, but Root in Pain, which I'm going to show later on, it does work. Now since you're not going to be doing too many attacks of your own because of your low dexterity, it's not so important for you to have high concentration, but we still want the deflections. That's why I've invested so much in resolve. And let's have a look at the ability I've taken. So I've selected Torment's Reach. You get a choice between Swift Strikes and Torment's Reach. Both of these require 1 wound to enact. I prefer this one over Swift Strikes. It does an Area of Effect ability, which will be modified by a high intelligence. Now the Turning Wheel ability, which causes extra fire damage to the opponents who wound you, actually relies on you accumulating a large amount of wounds, but each of these needs a wound, so you've got to pick one of them, and I think this is the better choice. There is a talent which comes off Swift Strikes, which gives you, I believe, extra shock damage, but yeah, I really like this one, to be honest. This can do damage to a variety, well, more than one opponent based on its cone ability. So that's the ability that I would pick with this monk. Now culture, basically I would pick a culture that gives you a point in one of the maximized stats here. It's up to you really which one you go for. Extra intelligence would mean your Root in Pain abilities effects over a large area. It kind of ends up being a bit like the Barbarian's attacks. If you want Might, which is what I've selected here with Living Lands, that's going to do damage, extra damage with all your attack types. And you could go Perception potentially to give you extra deflection and tiny bit extra chance of interrupts, but I think Might's probably the one I'd recommend. Now for the skills, Stealth, Athletics and Survival you start with. I've selected Colonist, which gives you extra survival. This is for potions in the main, so this will keep you alive a little bit longer. The potions which I think are really good for the monk are the slow working extra endurance potions. So say you get to about 25% of your endurance, you'd use that potion then, and it would gradually increase your endurance, not give you a huge amount straight away. It's really important to, once you're below the 50% endurance mark, not to go above it unless you're in real danger of getting knocked out. So those type of slow working endurance potions work quite well with this build. Let's have a look at those abilities, skills and talents now then. As usual, I'm going to be investing in my skills at level 12 just to save time, and I'll talk a bit about them then as well. So moving on to talents. Now if there's one talent which you should always take for a frontline build, it's got to be weapon and shield style. There's no other way that you can increase your deflection more than by using this and a shield. So that's what I'm going to be doing with this build. It is kind of a shame since the monk's unarmed attacks are so good. It is quite nice to dual wield unarmed with the monk, but we're still going to be using one hand as a unarmed attack and benefit from the transcendent suffering bonuses the monk gets for unarmed combat. But yeah, definitely need a shield for a frontline build. So let's move on. So on to level 3. Now we get to pick our first monk ability here, and we're going to be picking the one that I mentioned earlier on, Turning Wheel. So this gives you an extra 5% burn damage per wound. So it's kind of important for you to build up your wounds rather than use them. Now that's ability that I picked earlier on instead of Swift Strikes. It's still very good, so occasionally you will want to use it, but in the main you're going to be wanting to build up your wounds. Uh, to be honest, pretty much all of the monk's abilities are really good, and if I was going to use a different monk build, which I'll probably do a video for at some point, I would be using a lot of the ones I don't pick here. Force of Anguish is very good. It pushes opponents back and makes them prone, which, yeah, that's really good. I'm not sure we're going to be picking that though. We'll see a bit later on. Let's pick Turning Wheel. Can't remember if I pick it with this build or not. I've got a feeling we don't. So let's move on again to talents. Now here I'm actually going to pick Lesser Wounds, one of the monk's unique class talents. This lowers the wound threshold, so basically you gain wounds more quickly and then benefit from, well, being able to use that turning wheel, get more damage, and the other ability, which name I've forgotten and I'll mention in annotations. There's this one which gives you extra wounds. You can basically inflict them on yourself straight away. Not a big fan of this for most monk builds, but yeah, it's pure rest as well. But yeah, that's the one I'm going to pick here. Now normally for a frontline build you would actually pick Cautious Attack. This gives you an extra deflection boost, but it lowers your attack speed. I'm not going to be picking this one for this build. The monk actually has another modal ability which interferes with this. You can't use it at the same time as Cautious Attack. I'll mention a bit about that later on. But normally I would recommend that for a frontline build. So let's take Lesser Wounds. Now let's move on to the next ability. So this is, at this point, is a reasonably tough choice. Force of Anguish is really good, so I'm really tempted to take that. Stunning Blows, another one which I would normally definitely consider taking. That's up per rest, but it's pretty good actually as well. Soul Mirror is the one I think I'm going to be taking. Now this sadly doesn't work with Root in Pain or with the Battle Forged ability, but because we're setting this monk build up as a very high deflection frontline build, this is really going to benefit Soul Mirror ability. So basically what Soul Mirror does is passive ability. Whenever anyone shoots you, if they miss, then there's a 50% chance of them having the missile reflected onto them, so I believe they take the damage instead. Now because we have high deflection amount, there's actually quite a high chance of opponents missing. Now remember that this monk build also has a low constitution amount, so normally ranged attacks would potentially be a problem towards the monk. Melee attacks aren't really a big problem. Mage attacks could be a problem actually with this build, so you have to watch out for mages. But I think Soul Mirror is a pretty good pick to take here, especially with the high deflection and low constitution of this build. So moving on, level 6. Actually early game I should mention as well, because of the monk's low constitution, it may be quite hard to use in a very frontline role because of the low amount of constitution. You may have to be a bit more careful early on until you get certain of these abilities and talents that really make the build. But I think it's probably worth the early troubles that you may have to get a really amazing end build. You could always buy the monk from an inn later on, say when your main character's up to about level 6 or 7, so you have really high really good abilities and talents straight away with that new monk. Moving on then to talents. What else are we going to pick here? Now we're basically going to pick certain talents that help inflict more damage with the Battle Forged ability. So the ones I would recommend here are Savage Attack. This works with Battle Forged, so you gain an extra 20% damage on the Battle Forged abilities. It doesn't, well, the accuracy does actually matter, so it's -5 to that. This sadly doesn't work with Root in Pain, I believe, so you won't get any benefits from that. I haven't shown Root in Pain yet. I think we get that on level 7. And what else have we got here? We've got Vulnerable Attack. This also works with the Battle Forged ability, the Race Class ability, and it doesn't matter about the melee attack speed since it's automatic and happens as soon as someone misses you or attacks you in melee. And you get a melee DR bypass, so it means you do even more damage. So I'm going to take one of those at this point, I think. So yeah, whichever one you want here, basically. There probably is a order that you should take it in, but yeah, I haven't thought about that. Let's move on to the next ability. So here we can pick Roots in Pain. This is another key ability for this class build. So you can see here it has a radius effect. This is why intelligence is so important. So as I mentioned earlier, it kind of works a bit like the Barbarian's Carnage attacks, but it's automatic, it's passive. If they wound you, then you get this, and it causes that amount of damage in a 2-meter-ish radius with high intelligence. And you can see there it causes interrupts as well, so having the high perception will make this more frequent. So brilliant ability, going to be taking that. Oh, and we get a bonus Transcendent Suffering as well at this level, so extra accuracy and damage to our unarmed attacks. So next, level 8. So which one didn't we take? The Savage Attack. This one is extremely important to this build as well, Sign of Flame. So this gives an extra 20% burn damage and also gives you extra damage reduction. So you'd have 9 extra damage reduction before armor against burn damage attacks with this ability once you're below 50% endurance with the Battle Forged ability. And there's a variety of burn attacks that you'll be doing damage with. So there's the Battle Forged ability, and also the Turning Wheel ability, which gives you burning damage every wound you get. That's going to kick in as well, so this should help a lot. Will do a lot of extra burn damage on your opponents, so you want to pick that at some stage, and yeah, let's pick it now. Moving on, so next ability. Now we've got 2 abilities left, and there's tons of really good ones here. I'm going to be picking this one at this stage. So Duality of Mortal Presence gives you extra deflection, or you can actually give yourself extra will, fortitude, and reflex, an extra +8. It's a modal ability, you can switch between them. This is the one that doesn't work with cautious attack, so you if you pick this, don't pick cautious attack, and likewise you can't pick this if you pick cautious attack talent. Yeah, let's pick that. Level 10. So what have we got left? Savage Attack, let's pick that. So this means we'll be doing extra damage when we use our unarmed attacks, and also with the Battle Forged ability, but not Root in Pain. It doesn't work with that. It doesn't count as a melee attack, that one. Moving on. So let's have a look at some of these ones which I haven't picked then. That's really good, but I don't think I'm going to be picking it. Clarity of Agony, pretty decent as well. That one, extra defenses once a hostile effect wears off. That's passive, that's a really good ability. Force of Anguish, really good as well. There's a lot of really good ones here that I would be picking for a different monk class build, but yeah, I'm picking mainly the passive ones here. Now this one might be pretty good. If you do melee critical hits, it causes the target to be weakened and lowers the stats there. I'm not sure if this works with Battle Forge. I doubt it works with Root in Pain, because Root in Pain isn't counted as a melee attack. I think it probably would work with Battle Forge though, this one. Flagellant's Path, really good. Yeah, lots of really good ones I'm not taking here, but I think, yeah, let's try that one out, Enervating Blows. And the last talent, there's actually, well, let's do skills first. So I probably would be maxing out survival, have a bit of athletics just so you don't get tired in combat quickly. Anything over 3 is the key amount, because you can see there it lowers your combat fatigue to minus 90%. You can't get better than that. I'd probably want a bit of stealth as well with this guy, since he's up front. So I'd have stats pretty similar to that, basically. Skills, maximum out, a lot of survival to have really good potions, keep him alive a bit longer. And the last talent, there's a few here which I would recommend. I really like Hold the Line, keep an extra enemy engaged. Cautious attack won't work. Superior deflection would be a half decent pick. What else is there? Deep pockets potentially for extra potions. Interrupting blows if you wanted to cause more interrupts with the Battle Forge ability and your unarmed attacks. What else is there? There's a weapon style you could pick. I think there's a shield in the game which counts as a weapon, so you could actually use 2 weapon styles if you found that shield. Not a big fan of one-handed style. You could potentially pick Peasant to get an extra unarmed bonus. I think most of the time I would pick Hold the Line though. That's one I would go for here. Right, and I think we're finished, so let's take a look at this monk in combat. Okay, so this is our finished monk at level 12. You can see its health and endurance here, so it's kind of a bit on the low side for what I would like for a frontline build. I kind of like at least 1,000 health and at least a couple of hundred endurance, but there's very good reasons why I have low constitution, and we'll get to see why shortly. So the high accuracy from the Transcendent Suffering is really great. That's a really high accuracy amount with a shield especially. We've got massive amounts of deflection, so that's going to come in really handy, and the other defenses are all pretty good as well. Fortitude's maybe a tiny bit low. You can see here, Battle Forged ability. The Scion of Flame is given an extra 20% boost on this, so an extra 6. That's 30 damage as standard. We get an extra 4 damage reduction if we go below 50% endurance. So all of these stats are really high. I've got plate armor in this example. You should probably give the heaviest armor you can to this guy. What else should I be showing here? So that's all of the picks I made earlier on as well. So what I'm going to do is show this guy off against a bunch of weak opponents, just to show off the Roots in Pain ability. Now he's absolutely massively over leveled here, but I'm just really, this is just to show off how things work rather than a fair fight. So let's try and engage this guy. Now I'm not actually going to attack these targets. I'm going to can't they see me at all? Oh, now they can. Right, I'm going to let them attack me basically. Now I could actually turn off, I'm not well, these aren't going to work at all because these work with Battle Forged rather than Root in Pain, and Battle Forge only kicks in when you get to below 50% endurance. I might turn that off in a minute if they're missing me too much. We'll see. Right, you saw then that eventually they caused a wound on me. So that caused 1 hit and 4 crits. So see here we did a ton of crush damage. Now there's no negative amounts for DR being inflicted by vulnerable attack. It doesn't work with that. They don't have any DR, but it would show up if it was working. The accuracy is 67, so it's the same as our unarmed amount with Root in Pain, so it's really high chance of hitting in the first place, and actually works against Fortitude as well, which tends to be lower than deflection. And you can see here we're interrupting with our high perception amount. Yeah, interrupt 46 and a roll. They have low concentration, I think. Yeah, so that's working pretty well. Let's turn that off so they hit me a bit more regularly. Let's get this over and done with quick.
Still alive? I need something sharp.
Could attack them as well on top. That will take them out a lot quicker. Okay, now I'll show an example against a bit stronger opponent. So I'm going to try and show off the Battle Forged ability, which kicks in when we get to 50% endurance. So let's move up against these forest trolls and trigger combat. I'm not going to attack them again. I'm going to let them do the damage. Let's turn that off. It may take them quite a while actually before they get me down to half endurance, so I'm going to take off some of my deflection. Okay, so 5-10 minutes later these trolls have finally gotten me down to about 50% endurance, so Battle Forge is starting to kick in. I'm going to turn back on my deflection so they miss me more often. This works, as I mentioned earlier, even if they miss. Battleforged does. Root and Pain is still going to work as well if they do connect and cause a wound. We're up to 2 wounds. That means that Turning Wheel should be doing an extra 10% burn damage now as well. Added on to my already 20% from Sign of Flames, I think it's called, the talent. Let's see how this works though. Okay, so you can see there that that monk missed, and yet the Battleforged ability still kicked in. Now you can see here the accuracy of 62. Now that's 5 less than the Root in Pain ability because I'm using Savage Attack, but I believe it's doing an extra 20% of damage for that. So it works on Battleforged. I think that's a clear example of it working. And also you can see a clear example of Vulnerable Attack working there. This gives an extra 5 melee DR bypass. You can see the -5 there, DR 2.5 -5. They pretty weak to burn attacks, this type of enemy is. So that's working as well. So this is really going to boost our damage, these 2 abilities with Battleforged. And if I was attacking normally as well, we'd also be getting the benefits of that. Of course, I'd be normally attacking in combat, but this is an example. So let's continue things on a bit.
So much for
Let
you.
them keep on missing. And you can see it does massive amount of damage of all these bonuses that I've given. So these won't last too much longer. They attack pretty slowly, but yeah, they're going to go down. And you can see they're probably not even hitting me very often here at all. Missing because my deflection is so high. This is very survivable. Well, I know these are low level guys, but once you've got a lot of these talents and abilities,
So much
it's
for
really
you.
going to be a threat to anyone in melee. Definitely. And I'm not even attacking here either, which I'll start to do in a second. Let's do it now. These guys are quite resistant to crush attacks, but so where is it? Normal crush attack. You can see the extra burn amount there. That's an extra 5% for the wounds. If you get wounded a lot, that really starts to really kick in though. And it's -5 DR. Normal is 10 for crush attacks. So these guys have to go down pretty quickly now.
So much for you.
If I had the wound, I'd show off that ability, but sadly I don't at the moment. It's just a cone area of effect basically, so if you've got someone, it's really well used when there's an opponent you're attacking, there's someone or a few people behind it. That's when it really... Ooh, hang on a second. Let's use that now.
Ah, curse your eyes.
There we go. So that's called Torment's Reach, and I forgot what it was called earlier on. Right. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help me out by giving it a like. I'm really grateful to those of you who do that, as it raises my videos in YouTube's search rankings and attracts new people to the channel. So yeah, thanks if you do that, and special thanks as well if you share my videos as well. Really grateful to those of you who do that too. If you're new to the channel, you may want to consider subscribing. There's actually quite a few of these min-max character creation videos on the channel now. You can find the playlist in the comments section. And I'm planning on making many more over the coming weeks as well. So if there's a certain class that you'd like to see sooner rather than later, please ask, and I'll try and get to that sooner than others. Now, if you have any comments or feedback as well about this video, please let me know. That really helps me to make these videos better in the future. And I'd like to thank Sensuki as well for his original monk video. You can find a link to that also in the comments section, as well as a link to my Patreon page as well for those of you who might be interested in that. Right, I think I've covered everything I want to cover, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.